Are you glad to be alive today?
Yes.
That's not a trick question. We just are not normally asked that. So are you glad to be alive today? Because life is a gift. Even though sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's difficult, sometimes we even find ourselves just wanting to give up. Today, your life is a gift from God. It is a precious gift. So I hope you appreciate the fact that you have a life today from God. The flip side of that, when you talk about life, is to talk about murder. Every murder, we got to capture this because we're getting so numb because there's so many murders and killings. Every day you turn the news on, we're almost numb to the fact that another person has been killed. We just want to get on with it and get to the sports and hear what's going on with that. Every murder is a great and wicked sin in God's eyes. It is a great offense to God. His heart is broken when it happens. From the first murder, remember the first murder? Cain killed his own brother Abel. And it was evidently a very violent and a very bloody murder. In Genesis 4, it says that Abel's blood was crying out from the ground, perhaps crying for justice. So his brother took his life, and ever since that murder, mankind has been killing and killing and killing and killing, and there never seems to be an end to it. A few weeks back was Valentine's Day. You might have gotten a box of chocolates or some heart candy, and while you were eating that, do you know what was going on down in Florida? That's only a few of the teenagers who were shot dead in their school. I believe there were 17 who were murdered that day. And that's just a few of them. Many of them, they said, were 14 years old. Before that, there were a bunch of people who managed to get tickets to an outdoor concert in Las Vegas. And all they wanted to do was get their friends together and go out and just have a good time, dance in the grass and listen to some music. And yet there was somebody who took a vantage point from a hotel room and managed to kill 58 people and wound many others. Before that, there was a school in Newtown, Connecticut, Sandy Hook, and moms and dads quickly had to brush their little 6- and 7-year-olds' teeth and brush their hair and put on their little shirts and their little pants and get them out the door to go to elementary school. And somebody went into that school and killed 20 of those 6- and 7-year-olds. And look how beautiful those children are. And you know what? The light has gone out of their eyes. Every one that you see up there is dead because somebody murdered them. And then there's a city. It was a great city in our country at one time, Chicago, right? The Windy City, Chi-Town. I wouldn't want to go to Chicago. Do you know how many people were just killed on the streets of Chicago last year? 124. Some people just get caught in the crossfire. There's a mother, as you can see, kissing her dead little boy on the head for the last time before they close the box and put him 6 feet under the dirt. And before that, there was a movie that came out, Batman, The Dark Knight Rises. And if you remember, they were going to kick it off with a midnight showing. Isn't that fun? Get your friends together, all go out to eat, and go see Batman at midnight. But it wasn't fun, because somebody went into that movie theater in Colorado and murdered 12 people and wounded 70 others. And before that, right, was Columbine. And that was the one that seems like it kicked everything off with Klebold and Harris when they went into Columbine High School, murdered 12 teenagers. That first picture that you saw when the slides came up was Cassie Bernal. There's a book written about her life. I recommend you read it. It's called She Said Yes. She was in the library when they came into that school. And they walked up to her, and with a gun to her face, they said, "Do you believe in God?" And then hence the title of the book, She Said Yes. And so they took her life and let her die on the floor of the library. You know, we are not animals. And I speak to the teenager, and I speak to the children around. We are not animals, right? We are made in the image of God, and life is sacred, and life is to be protected. Do you know, we are our brother's keeper, right? You know, that idea of a keeper is a shepherd. We are supposed to be our brother, our sister's shepherd, our keeper, right? We're not to be slaughtering the sheep, but caring for the sheep that are around us. And they don't teach that in school anymore, right? That you look out for the one next to you because they're made in the image of God. So we're going to talk about that. And I need the teens especially to listen because they're the most affected. Because they got to go to the schools every day. And if you listen to some of these parents speaking on some of these talk shows, you know what they say? I'm scared to death to send my children to school because they're not safe. And I don't know when the next one is going to be. First thing, we got to remember this. We are created in the image of God. Genesis 1:27. God created mankind, that's us, in His own image. In the image of God, He created them, male and female. He created them. What does that mean? What does it mean to be in the image of God? It means a lot of things. It means a lot of things. But here's, at the very least, this is what it means that you're in God's image. You're capable of complex communication. We have this vast and precise vocabulary that we talk to one another with. We not only talk to people with it, we can talk to God. We can share our feelings, our hearts, our thoughts. We can have conversation, a complex communication. Animals bark and chirp and whinny and moo and hiss. That's what animals do. They have a little sound they can make. As human beings, we are capable of complex communication. As being made in the image of God, we are capable of abstract thought. Sometimes we're impressed by what an animal does. You might go to your yard this spring and see a nest that was built last year and say, wow, that nest made it through the winter. How impressive. Look around and see what mankind does. Can an animal build an MRI machine? Can an animal build a 747 jet? Can an animal do trigonometry? Can an animal do brain surgery? Animals can't do that. God has made us with this incredible capacity to understand and think and design and figure out and make a smartphone and come up with Windows 10 and do all this stuff. Capable of this amazing thinking power. We are capable of obeying God's moral law. Sometimes dogs are pretty impressive. You can train a dog to take a blind person down the road. If there's a low branch, the dog will stop the person from hitting his head. Or if you're walking up and there's a curb, the dog stops the person from tripping over the curb. That's impressive, but that's a dog. And you can teach them to do those things. But you cannot take a dog and say, you must have no other God beside the Lord. You must not make an idol. You must not murder. They can't grasp God's moral law. God has designed us to be able to do that, and He's put within us a conscience. Everybody know what your conscience is? Ever have your conscience go off on you? Yeah, you do. And you're supposed to. God's given us a warning device. Upon breaking God's law, our conscience begins to cause that guilt. Unless you sear your conscience, you can sear your conscience. You can become such an evil person that you cut it off and it no longer bothers you. But God's given you a conscience to bother you when you do wrong. God has given you a soul that will last forever. You may leave today and go to Bojangles and get some chicken. Don't worry about that chicken. When it got killed and is put on the Bojangles menu, it didn't go to chicken heaven or chicken hell. It's just gone. Chicken, gone. You're not a chicken. You may go to Arby's and get one of those gyros. Anybody had the gyro yet? Oh, it is a good sandwich. I recommend it. Don't worry about that cow. When they killed him and shaved him and put him on the sandwich, it's okay. He's gone. If you die, you're not gone. Nobody here is going to just be gone. When your body dies, you have this spirit that's going to live forever, either in heaven or in hell. You are made to last forever. You are capable, God has made you, of having a relationship with the Creator. Like a father and his child, God has made you in the image of God, and you are able to connect with God and have a relationship. That's why you don't teach an animal. Pray this way. Our Father who art in heaven, holy is your name. But you can do that. You can connect to God and pray to Him and worship Him. Human life is so valuable that the murderer has only one fitting consequence. He must pay with his own life. That's Genesis 9:6. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made mankind. Do you know there was a time on the earth when the whole world was filled with violence? Much like it is now. But there was a guy, his name was Noah. Great guy, had 3 sons, had a good wife, his sons were married. One guy named Noah that found grace in God's eyes, and when God looked down, he said, this whole earth is so violent and so corrupt, I am going to carry out capital punishment on the world. Noah, build the ark. Noah and his wife and his 3 sons and their 3 wives built the ark, and 2 of each kind of animal got on, and God lifted them up above the judgment of a worldwide flood. And He judged the entire world for its wickedness. And then Noah got off of the ark. And when he got off of the ark, that's when God gave him this word. He basically instituted human government. He said, I've shown you what happens when the world is filled with violence and people are taking other people's lives and nothing is done about it. And it just spreads and spreads, and you have uncontrollable murder. This is how you take care of it. You must penalize the murderer by taking their life. By the way, some people don't believe Noah's flood was literal. Do you know why we have a fossil record of dead things buried all over the world? It's called Noah's flood. It's called a worldwide global deluge. So, God institutes human government. Then there comes a time when God makes a nation. He picks one man, Abraham, and He says, Abraham, from you, I am going to build a nation like the stars in the sky and the sand on the sea. And He ends up calling them Israel. And then He begins to give them a law. He starts off with 10 commandments. And one of the 10 is Exodus 20, verse 13, that you shall not murder. You know, God knows us, and He knows what we're capable of. Do you know we're capable of murdering? We are. People are capable of murder, and it happens every single day. And so God has to say, not only do I not want you to steal, and I don't want you to lie, I don't want you to kill somebody. I don't want you to take their life. And so He tells them that because people are made in the image of God. Second thing we need to grasp is people need protected even in the womb. Even in the womb. God speaks for the innocent. And God speaks toward the guilty. He says, protect the innocent, and you've got to bring consequences upon the guilty, and it starts in the womb. If you take a look at the next slide, you've got to read this. Exodus 21. It's in your notes. Write it down. Very important passage. If men fight, and they hurt a woman with child, so that she gives birth prematurely. So stop there and get the picture. We're talking about a woman who is pregnant. She's with child, but it talks about the fact that if these men were fighting and hurt her and caused her to give premature birth. So in other words, even though she's with child, the child isn't in her arms, the child is in her womb. Do you see that? If men fight and hurt a woman with child, so that she gives birth prematurely, and yet no harm follows, he shall surely be punished according as the woman's husband imposes on him. And he shall pay as the judge determines. But if any harm follows, you know what he pays with? Life for life. First thing to catch. When there is a baby in the womb, God says that woman is with child. Whether the baby is out of the womb or in the womb, it is a child. The woman who is pregnant has a child. And it talks about giving birth prematurely. So even if the child is yet not fully developed and fully able to enter into this world, nevertheless, called a child at any stage in the womb, that is what's growing, is a child at any stage. Being born premature now, we hear the stories of children who are born very tiny, right? And doctors see them through, and we know that they're capable of coming into this world from a very early age. You know, Kyle was born, I think, 31 weeks. I believe it was 3 pounds and... 3 pounds, 9 ounces. I think he didn't turn out half bad. You know? 3 pounds, 9 ounces. And there he is. Right? So inside of a woman's womb is a baby. And if you cause that woman to go into birth prematurely and that baby dies, it says you will pay life for life. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth, and life for life. See, why is God telling us this? Why are we saying this out loud? That baby doesn't have a voice. Somebody's got to speak for that baby in the womb. We have to speak for the baby in the womb and say, don't harm what is growing in the womb. That is a child. Children in their high schools need protected. Children in their elementary schools need protected. And children in the womb need protection. They need protection from those who would murder them because they're in the image of God. So, we're in the image of God. Even in the womb, the little one growing there is a person in the image of God, needing protection. Thirdly, our Creator is a very personal Creator. Very personal. Right? You're not a product. Teenagers, you're not a product of time and chance evolution. You're not a big mistake. There's a personal God who designed you in His own image. He designed male, Adam, designed female, Eve. And from Adam and Eve began the whole population that you see today from reproduction. God made Adam and Eve, made them male and female, made them in His own image. And you know what? His handiwork on your life is still involved. If you look at this verse, Psalm 139. Nope, you're way back. Nope, yeah, there it is. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Let that sink in for a minute. God knitting you together in the womb. God's hands at work in some mysterious and sacred and unique person-forming work. You know what? I know two people are alike because God's involved. And He's working, and He's knitting, and He's making everyone special, and everyone unique. Special to Him, special to your parents, special to those whose lives you're going to encounter, and be a blessing to them. And God is knitting you together, and when God's knitting you together, right, there's nobody who has the right to tear you apart. In the womb or out of the womb, you're to be protected. Proverbs chapter 6. When you get a chance, you can read Proverbs 6, 16 and 17. It all goes together. It starts off by saying there's like 7 things God hates. This Hebrew metaphor that comes up different times in your Bible. 6 this, 7 that. But it mentions there's a whole list of things that God hates. And one thing it says He hates is He hates the hands that shed innocent blood. He hates it. For somebody to go out and to maliciously, with evil intent, take the life of another person. Can't stress it enough. We need to hate murder. We need to hate the murder that takes place in the womb. We need to hate the murder that takes place in the high school. Hate the murder that takes place on the concert in Las Vegas. Hate the murder that just constantly takes place on our streets. We need to hate murder. God hates it. Yesterday I turned the news on, only to be met with the image that policemen were all around a veteran's home in California. Somebody went into the veteran's home in California and took 3 women hostage, killed all 3 of them, and then killed himself. So today, while we're sitting here, just our biggest worry today is adjusting to the time change. There's 3 more families in California planning a funeral for 3 intelligent, capable women who loved veterans and wanted to be a face of love and mercy and care when they came into the VA building there, and instead they're planning a funeral for them. We need to hate that. And like I said, it is so easy to get numb because all we hear constantly is murder, murder, murder. And our last point is simply this. Exodus 20:13. You shall not commit murder. God tells us not to do it. Now, I want to just take a minute and say there's a difference between murder and killing. Some people get this confused. Murder is intentionally taking the life of a human being. Intentional with the motive of malice and evil. Killing can be accidental. I wrote several things down to kind of give us an idea of why murder and killing is different. Imagine that you are a nurse and you are responsible for X number of patients, and it's a hectic day, and each one is supposed to have a precise medicine and a precise dosage of medicine, and accidents happen, and it does happen. There's times when a nurse accidentally gives the wrong medication. She has no evil intent, and it's a complete accident, but it takes the person's life. That is killing. But she didn't murder him. But that would be the difference between killing and murder. There could be a man cutting down a tree. We take it for granted that all they do is just swipe the chainsaw and it falls exactly where you want it to. Imagine there's a little bit more to dropping these big trees than that. When the wind is blowing, and a man starts cutting down a tree and the wind catches it, and rather than falling this way, it falls that way, and it lands on somebody. It could kill them. That would be an idea of killing somebody, but it was an accident. You might be out driving. It could be any day of the week, and it's foggy, and there's a bicyclist. And before you know it, you're on top of them, and you hit them with your car. You didn't mean to, but you took their life. That would be killing. A police officer may be called to a dispute, and things are out of control, and he is pushed into the place where he has to draw his weapon and take somebody else's life to prevent them from taking an innocent person's life. You might have to defend your own life. That's killing. But murder, when God says don't murder, do not intentionally take the life of another because of a motive of malice and evil. Do not murder. We wonder sometimes, what is going on? What's God going to do about this? Rest assured, there is a day coming. There is a day coming when all this wonderful window and opportunity of grace and mercy is going to close. It is going to happen. One day they're going to face Almighty God, and it is going to be justice without mercy. Take, for example, the world in the days of Noah. There's a time when God reaches the end. He reached the end in Noah's day. There was a city called Sodom and Gomorrah. They don't exist anymore. They're at the bottom of the Dead Sea. God had enough of their sin. Rained fire and brimstone on top of them. There's an end to justice and mercy. And those who take the wonderful gift of life that God gave to them, and they use it to go out and murder people, they will face God one day. And it may very well be justice without mercy. What's the challenge for today? Got three things here. The first one is this: cherish life. You know what? You look around right now in this room, you know, there's a chance we could meet together in 7 days from now, and somebody in this room will not be here. It could happen. Cherish life. From conception to the grave. Just cherish life. Second thing, appreciate each day. When you wake up in the morning, and maybe you're facing what you think is going to be a horrible day. Because yesterday was horrible, and it's kind of running into the next day, and you wish you didn't have to get out of bed. It's one of those days. Still face it by saying, you know what, God? This is a gift. Today is a gift from you. I think it's one slide back. Welcome, there it is. Welcome each day as a gift. Welcome each day as a gift. Thank God for each new day. And the third one, I want to give you something you can do today. Think of somebody right now, some young person, some teenager, maybe a college student, somebody that you would just love to beg God's hand of protection upon their life. We're going to end by singing 318. You want to take a moment, that person you just thought of, and you want to come forward as we sing. You can feel free to kneel down here. You can feel free to stand. You can feel free to go over to one side or the other and just light one of the candles and have a quiet prayer. That person that you thought of, take a moment. You can just come forward even as we sing and say, God, I am so worried about so-and-so. Every time they walk out the door, I can't wait till they come back in. And I just come and just beg God's hand